Hello, and welcome to the Invent with Scratch Screencast. I'm Al Swigert, and in this episode, we're going to make this Memory Gobos game. This is a simple memory game. I'm going to click on the green flag to start it off, and it'll show an increasing number of these Gobo characters, and you have to click on them in the right order. So level 1 is pretty easy. You just click on the one that's right there. And then for level 2, you have to click on them in the right order, and if you click on the wrong one, it'll shake its head. So this is not the first one to click on, so this must be the first one to click on, and then this is the second one. And then for level 3, there's 3 Gobos, so let me try that. Oh, that was the first one. Hey, lucky guess. And now for level 4, there's 4 of them, so I have to figure out, okay, that must be the first one, so is this the second one? No. So every time you click on the wrong Gobo, you have to restart from the very beginning. So this is the first one, this is the second one? Nope. So this is the first one, and this must be the second one, and maybe that's the third one. And so the number of Gobo sprites just keeps increasing more and more until you get a maximum of 10 at the same time. So the source code for this game is pretty simple, actually. We have the stage sprite, which has a few scripts, mostly to handle these two events called reset and new level. And then the Gobo sprites all have the exact same code, except that they have a myNumber variable, which is set to this sprite only for each of these sprites. So this myNumber variable for Gobo 1 is different from the myNumber variable for Gobo 2, and that's different from the myNumber variable for Gobo 3 and 4. It's all because when we created that variable, we selected for this sprite only. So that'll become more clear later on, but for right now, just know that all of these Gobo sprites have the exact same code, except for right here, when the green flag is clicked, Gobo sprite number 1 will set myNumber to 1, and Gobo sprite 2 will set myNumber to 2, and Gobo sprite 3 will set myNumber to 3, all the way up to Gobo sprite 10. So the myNumber variable setting for each of these sprites is kind of key to how this game works. So there are two variables that we have besides myNumber, and that's level and next. And normally next won't be shown to the player as they're playing the game, but I'm just going to show it to you right here by clicking on the next checkbox. So when we begin the game by clicking on the green flag, so when level is 1, that means that we should only show one Gobo sprite. So what's actually happening here is each of these Gobo sprites is taking a look at this level variable. As long as their myNumber variable is set equal or lesser than the level sprite, then they know that they should show up. Otherwise, they'll hide themselves. So all of these other Gobo sprites are hidden. The next variable keeps track of which Gobo sprite should be clicked on next. So right now, at the very beginning of a level, next is always set to 1, meaning that the next sprite that I click on should be Gobo sprite number 1. And every time I click on the correct Gobo sprite, next will increase by 1. So you can see very quickly, next will increase to 2, but then at the start of the next level, it'll be reset back to 1 again. So now here we are at level 2, meaning that Gobo 1 and Gobo 2 should show up, because their myNumber variables are set to either equal or less than the level variable value. So right now you can see I clicked on Gobo sprite 1, which was what next was equal to, so now next increased by 1, so now it's 2. So that means that the next sprite that I click on should be Gobo sprite 2. And then the level just keeps increasing, which causes more and more of these Gobo sprites to appear. Now I can just click on these sprites to identify which one is Gobo 1, Gobo 2, and Gobo 3. So let's say, okay, here we are at the start of level 3. Next is equal to 1, so if I click on one of these sprites, it turns out this one is Gobo sprite number 1. The player actually can't tell the difference between them because they look the exact same. So now I know as the programmer that this is Gobo sprite 2 because I can click on the sprite down here and it shows me. But now next is equal to 2, but if I accidentally click on Gobo sprite 3 right here, when I click on it, this Gobo sprite will check its myNumber variable and see that it's equal to 3, which is not equal to 2. So that's how it knows that it should shake its head, and then the level should restart, so next goes back to 1. So let's go ahead and get started. Click on Create to create a brand new Scratch editor, and we don't need this Scratch cat, so we can just delete it. And then go right here to New Sprite and click on Choose Sprite from Library. And I think the Gobo sprite is either in Things or somewhere in Fantasy. Here we go, Gobo. So we're going to add all of the code to this one Gobo sprite and then duplicate the sprite. That way all the code gets duplicated as well. So the first thing we're going to do is click on the eye right here and rename this to Gobo1. And let's go back to the stage sprite. There's going to be some code that we don't want associated with any of the Gobo sprites, so putting them on the stage script area is pretty good. So let's start off with, from the brown events category, grab this when green flag clicked block. So at the very start of the game, we're going to have to reset those level and next variables. So actually, let's create those variables first. Click on the orange data section and then click on make a variable. So we need those two variables, one for the level, and then another variable for next. So at the very start of this program, we're going to set this level variable to 1. So grab this set variable block, and be sure to grab set variable and not this change variable block. But we'll just change this to set level to 1. And there are two events that our program is going to use. It's reset and new level. The reset event happens every time you click on the wrong Gobo sprite. So if I click on this one, the reset event fires and is broadcasted, and that causes all of the Gobo sprites on the screen to suddenly go dark again. So we're going to broadcast that at the very start of the game. Go to the brown events category and grab this broadcast block and snap it into place. And remember, we're adding this code to the stage, not to Gobo1. So click on the black triangle and we're going to create a new message, and this message will be called reset. And then we're going to have this stage also handle that reset block as well. So grab this when I receive block, and when I receive reset, that's when we're going to have it set the next variable back to 1. So go to the orange data section, grab this set next to 1. Now there's one thing that I'm going to do here that's kind of weird. I'm going to go to the orange control section and grab this forever block and just leave it there completely empty. And the reason I need that is because none of these sprites are going to make use of a forever block, which means that as soon as we click on the green flag and it runs through all of these scripts, they'll all just stop, so Scratch will then automatically terminate the program. You can tell if I disconnect this so that there's no forever loop. As soon as I click on the green flag, Scratch really quickly runs through all this code, and then it reaches the end of the program, so it just stops it. And that's why the green flag isn't lit up anymore. So I need to add this forever loop right here, so that way Scratch continues to run the program, even though it's just running and doing nothing forever right here. But that way this will keep the program running. So I'll click on the stop sign right there, and let's go to Gobo1. So at the very start of the game, we're going to need this brown events category, this when green flag is clicked. We're going to need to create a myNumber variable for each of these Gobo sprites, and then have that set at the very start of the program when the green flag is clicked. So go to the orange data section first and click on make a variable. And we'll call this myNumber. And here's the important part, make sure that this is for this sprite only. Now you can tell, not only does myNumber, the variable name, show up here, you can see that it's specifically Gobo1's myNumber variable. So as we start duplicating these, you'll see that each Gobo sprite has their own myNumber variable, and that's because we made the myNumber variable for this sprite only. So at the very start of the program, we want to set myNumber to a unique number for each of these Gobo sprites. So Gobo1 can just be set to 1. Now, whenever these Gobo sprites receive that reset message, they should darken themselves, and also show up or hide themselves depending on if the level value is. Next, we should add code so that the Gobo sprites all handle when they receive the reset message. First of all, this reset message is broadcasted anytime you want to reset back to the start of the level, and at the start of the level, all of the Gobo sprites are always darkened out. So first we're going to go to the purple look section and grab this set color effect block and snap it into place. We don't want to set the color effect. Instead, we want to set the brightness effect. And normally we can make the Gobo sprite even brighter, but if we make it a negative value, we can make the Gobo sprite darker. So let's set this to -75. We also need these Gobo sprites to show up or hide themselves based on the level and their MyNumber value. So let's go to the control section and grab this if-else block. So we want this to show the Gobo sprite if level is greater than their MyNumber value, or if level is equal to their MyNumber value. So we're going to need to first go to the operators section here, and we want to have, that one. Here we'll say if level is greater than MyNumber, then we also want another one that says if level is equal to MyNumber. So if this is true, or this is true, then we want the Gobo sprite to show itself. So we're going to need to connect these with an OR block from the green operators section. We'll just snap this one into the left, snap this one into the right. So if that's true, then the Gobo sprite will show itself. Otherwise, or else, it'll hide itself. So let's think about this. This is Gobo sprite 1, so its MyNumber is going to be set to 1. So on level 1, this part of the condition will be false because 1 is not greater than 1, but 1 is equal to 1. So in that case, Gobo sprite 1 will show up when level is 1. Now in the next level, level 2, level will be greater than MyNumber, so Gobo sprite 1 will show itself. And then when we have a second Gobo sprite that we've set MyNumber to 2, this part of the condition will be false, but this part of the condition will be true, so Gobo sprite 2 will also show itself. Next, let's handle what happens when a Gobo sprite is clicked on. So let's go to the Brown Events category and grab when this sprite clicked. I'm gonna just move this over to the side. So there's two things that can happen when the Gobo sprite is clicked on. Either it's the right sprite to click on, in which case the Gobo sprite should go from darkened to lit up, or it's the wrong Gobo sprite to click on, in which case the Gobo sprite should do that head shaking motion like in the original game. So we're going to need an if-else block to handle those two cases. So let's figure out, how do we know when the Gobo sprite is the correct one to click on? Well, the next variable will be set to the number of the Gobo sprite that should be clicked on. And by number of the Gobo sprite, we can tell that by the MyNumber variable. So if next is equal to MyNumber, then we know that this was the correct Gobo sprite to click on. In that case, the Gobo sprite should light up. So let's go to the green operators section, grab this equal block, then go to the orange data section and grab next, which is the number of the next Gobo sprite that should be clicked on, and then MyNumber. So in this case, let's brighten up the Gobo sprite. Go back down here, grab this set effect block, and the effect we want to set is brightness. And to set it back to normal, we're going to set the brightness effect to 0. So let's test this out. I'm going to click on the green flag. Next is equal to 1, so I should click on Gobo sprite 1. And when Gobo sprite 1 is clicked on, it checks if next, which is 1, is equal to my number, which is 1, and so since they are equal, then it'll set brightness effect to 0. But then we also need to change next so that its new value is 1 more than its current value. That way the game will know that we should click on Gobo Sprite 2, and then after we click on Gobo Sprite 2, we should click on Gobo Sprite 3, and 4, and so on. So we're going to go to the orange data section and grab this change block and put it underneath the set brightness. We want to change next by 1. So if next is set to 1, changing it by 1 will set it to 1 plus 1, 2. And when next is set to 2, changing it by 1 will set it to 3, and so on. It'll just keep increasing it by 1. But there's also one more case that we need to check. What happens when we have finally clicked on all of the Gobo sprites? We should go to the next level. So we need to check for that. Is this the last Gobo sprite for the level that needs to be clicked on? And we can determine that if the next value is equal to level plus 1. So let's go to the orange control section. We can just test that out right now. Right now the level is 1. And so when we click on the Gobo sprite, it says, yep, that was the right sprite to click on. So it increases next by 1. So now next is equal to 2. So now that we see that next is greater than the current level, that's how we know that the last Gobo sprite was clicked on, and we should continue on to the next level. So go to the operators section, grab this greater than block, then go back to the orange data section. So if next is greater than level, then we should start the next level. And we're going to do that just by broadcasting an event called next level. Or new level, rather. So click on the black triangle, create a new message. We're going to broadcast a message called new level. And just so that the game doesn't immediately go to the next level as soon as you click on that Gobo sprite, let's add a short pause before that. So go to the orange control section, grab this wait 1 second block, and just have it wait a second, and then start the next level. So let's test this out. I'm going to stop the program, then click on the green flag to start it. So level is equal to 1, next is equal to 1. So when I click on this, next is greater than level, so that means that we should start the next level. But of course, we haven't written any code that handles this new level broadcast. So let's do that for the Gobo sprite. Really, all the Gobo sprites do when a new level start is they just find a new random place on the screen to appear. Let's go to the brown events section, grab when I receive new level, and we just need to make it randomly show up somewhere else. So in the dark blue motion category, there's a go to XY block. We can just set this to a random number, and the random numbers are in the green operator section. Pick random 1 to 10. I'll need one for the X, one for the Y. And we can just set it to any random X and Y number. You can see the range of X and Y values right here. It shows the X and Y position of the mouse. So you can see that the maximum X is 240, and the minimum X is negative 240, and the maximum Y is 180, and the minimum Y is negative 180. So let's just set this to, I don't know, for X, maybe anywhere between 200 to negative 200. And then for Y, negative 140 to 140. I guess I should put the negative number on the left side. So I can just run this code just by double-clicking on it. Yeah, that's pretty good. Also, if we go to the stage sprite, we should have this code also handle what happens when a new level has started. So let's go back to the brown events category, grab this when I receive new level, and what the program should do is increase the value in the level variable by 1. So go to the orange data section. We're going to grab this change variable block, and we want to change level by 1. So that'll increase level by 1. And then after that, we want to broadcast a reset. So that way it'll reset back to the start of this new level. So broadcast and broadcast reset. So that's what'll set the next variable back to 1 at the start of the new level, and then all of these Gobo sprites already have code. Oops. They already have code right here that will set their brightness back to that darkened value and then also show or hide it based on their MyNumber variable. So we also need to add some code here that handles when the wrong Gobo sprite was clicked on. So you can remember from the original game, if the wrong Gobo sprite is clicked on, it just does this little shaking. So we can do that with the glide blocks from the dark blue motion category. Go ahead and grab one of these glide 1 second blocks and just set it off to the side for right now. So what we want it to be a fairly fast glide. So let's set this to 0.05 seconds. And we don't want it to glide to a specific static number on the screen. Instead, we want it to be somewhat relative to the current X and Y position of the Gobo sprite. So we can see there's X position and Y position bubbles for the Gobo sprite. So what we want to do here is we want the same Y position as the Gobo sprite, but we want it to go a little bit to the right. So in order to do that, we're going to have to increase its X position by 10. So the X coordinate that we glide to is the current X position, whatever that is, plus 10, which will be a little bit to the right. And then we'll create another glide block that'll move it a little bit to the left. So grab another glide block. This time let's set this to 0.1. And the Y position will be the same, but the X position will be its current X position minus 20. And then we want it to glide a little bit back to the right again. So in this case, just right-click on this first glide block and hit duplicate, and snap that into place. And we only need the first 3 of them, so get rid of that last one. You can test this out right now. You can see it just does a little quick zigzag right there. It goes to the right, and then to the left, and then to the right again, all in about a total of 1/5 of a second. So we wanted to do this multiple times, so let's put this inside of a repeat block, and just have it repeat itself twice. So double-click to test that out. Yeah, that's kind of nice. Stick it into the else block, which is the code that runs when the wrong sprite is clicked on. And then also when you click on the wrong sprite, we want to reset back to the start of the level. Just like right here, if I click on the right sprite, but then I click on the wrong sprite, all of the lit up sprites darken themselves again, and next goes back to 1. So we need to broadcast that reset message from inside the else block. Oh, reset. I'm going to click on this triangle here to give myself a little bit more space for the code. And that's it. That's all the code that we need. And the nice thing is, all we have to do now is just duplicate these Gobo sprites. So right-click on Gobo and hit duplicate. And let's test this out just with 2 Gobo sprites. So click on the green flag. Oh, that's weird. The level is 1, so only one of these sprites should show up. The reason that they're both showing up is because Gobo 2 still has its MyNumber set to 1, because we just duplicated the sprite and all of its code exactly, but this is the one change we need to make to each of the new duplicated Gobo sprites. So let's try that again. Click on the green flag, And now you can see only Gobo sprite has made itself visible. And that's because at the very start of the game, level is set to 1, and so this condition is true for Gobo sprite 1 because level is equal to its my number of 1, so it shows itself. However, Gobo 2, meanwhile, has its my number variable set to 2. And remember, this my number variable for Gobo sprite 2 is different from Gobo 1's my number variable. So since this is false for Gobo 2, then Gobo 2 hides itself. So we can just click on this Gobo sprite, and what happens there is next started off equaling to 1, so since next equaled my number of 1, then that was the correct Gobo sprite to click on, so it changed the brightness back to the regular brightness, which I can show you right now. Just restart this game. Went back to its regular brightness, then it increased next by 1, but also, since now next is greater than level, it waited 1 second and broadcasted that new level message, which caused the stage sprite to change level by 1, so level is now equal to 2, and then it broadcasted the reset to reset all the level stuff back to the start of the level. So next got set back to 1, and then all of the Gobo sprites reset their brightness back to that darkened value, and also decided if they should show or hide themselves. So let's just go ahead and duplicate all of these other Gobo sprites. So duplicate, duplicate. I'm going to stop at 10 Gobo sprites. And remember, you're going to have to set the my number value of all of these to the correct my number value. So Gobo 3 should have a my number of 3, Gobo 4 should have my number of 4, and so on. And now there's one more slight problem of what happens when the player finishes the entire game. That is, when level starts becoming equal to 11 after we finish level 10. And in that case, it wouldn't be possible to beat that level because there is no Gobo 11 to click on. So instead, let's go back to the stage sprite. Let's add some code right here to when I receive new level to see if level ever becomes equal to 11. So go to the control section, grab this if block, and I'm going to put the reset after it. And let's check if level is equal to 11. Because we know that once the player gets to level 11, that will be greater than the number of Gobo sprites we have. So in that case, let's just reset the entire game back to level 1. And that's the entire game. Let's test it out. I'll click on the green flag. And see there's Gobo 1. Hey, that's great. And then the next level starts. We're at level 2. So next is equal to 1. That means I need to figure out which of these is Gobo sprite number 1. Is it this one? Nope. So it must be this one. And then, once I've clicked on the correct Gobo sprite, next will increase by 1. So I have to click on Gobo sprite 2. And then next increases, but then next, which was 3, was greater than level, which was 2. So that's how we know that we need to start the next level. So now it's level 3. I just have to start clicking on all of these Gobo sprites. And you'll just have to do a lot of trial and error to figure out which is the exact proper sequence to click on these Gobo sprites. And sometimes you'll just get lucky. That's the first one. Oh, that wasn't the second one. Is this the second one? Nope. How about this one? Yeah. Is that the third one? Nope. Now I'm at level 7. So that's the entire Gobo memory game. You just have to remember the correct order of Gobo sprites to click on, and through trial and error you can figure out exactly which one will be the next one that you have to click on. So this game's code was actually pretty simple, with just these scripts for the Gobo sprite, and then these scripts for the stage, and then just duplicating the Gobo sprites over and over and over again. So, and you can keep adding as many Gobo sprites as you want if you want to have larger and larger levels. I just stopped at 10, but be sure to set each of their my number values to the correct one. So you can see Gobo 2 sets my number to 2. And that's the entire game. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment or go ahead and email me. But thanks for watching.